Hello Year 4, I hope you're all well. To start our reading lesson today, we have some more retrieval questions. So if you could have a think about the following 6 questions, thinking back to what you read yesterday, can you remember the following? So pause the video here and have a think about them, please. Off you go. Okay, number 1. So do you remember what Fred said that you could eat whilst they were in the jungle? That's right. He said that you can eat different insects, can't you? He also wondered that if they had any bananas in the jungle, because obviously there were monkeys there and monkeys need bananas too. He also thought maybe there would be some berries, but the main thing that he said that you could eat whilst you're in the jungle were some insects, and the others were quite shocked about that, weren't they? So number 2, why didn't Lila want Max to test the food? Do you remember? That's right. Because Max is quite young, Lila was worried about him. Max also had some allergies and Lila didn't want the food to affect him and maybe him to have an allergic reaction. What size insect did Fred say would be fine to eat? Yes, he said it would be a small insect but not anything larger than what could go up your nose. Okay, next one then. Where did Lila run off to and why? So this was a 2-part question. You had to give a location and also a reason. So Lila ran out of the clearing. She ran out of the clearing to try and find some food, didn't she? Okay. What did Max do to Fred when he tried to stop him from running after Lila? He tried to bite him and then he soon bit Con, didn't he? He has a thing with biting people. So we shall see if he maybe drops that habit further on in the story. And finally, what did Lila suggest that they made with the grubs? Yes, she suggested that they make chocolate pancakes. Now, I'm sure the grubs would taste a lot different to a chocolate pancake. And today, one of our vocabulary words is grubs. So you're going to be seeing what a grub is. So maybe that might put you off the fact that they do look like a chocolate pancake, because they definitely don't. Okay, so today's learning objective is to look again at how we can make those inferences from a text. We're going to look at one specific question today and really look at that in depth and figure out how best we can answer that. So what you're going to do by the end of this session is to read between the lines of a text. You're going to be able to make connections and draw conclusions about what the text might mean or the purpose of what's being said. You will be able to draw inferences such as inferring characters' feelings, thoughts and motives. And finally, you'll be able to justify this through looking at evidence from the text. Okay, so the first word we're going to look at today is grubs. Okay, now you might be squeaming at the screen saying, "Oh, Miss Newman, why are you showing us this?" But it is a noun, it is a thing. It only has one syllable, which is grubs. And grubs are basically like the inside of an insect, especially a beetle. So you can see here that this is a grub. Now, do you think you'd like to eat one of these? No. But if you were in a jungle and you had no other food, you had no other choice, maybe you would have to sacrifice eating it just for the sake of making sure that you do not starve. Okay. In the book, it's quoted as the grubs turned into a paste. So we can see by that the children are obviously using these grubs to make food. They might do something with the grubs to turn them into a paste, because at the moment they look like the shape of the insect that they once were. You can also use this word grubs in a sentence by saying, "My onions are ruined by small grubs eating the roots." So maybe the grub has got into the onion, because don't forget they did move at one point. So they would have got into those food like the onions, eating the roots of an onion. Synonyms, so words that mean the same or similar to grubs, are larva, maggot and insect. So it's all about these creatures, these insects that are in the jungle. A second key word today, which is really important, is a flint. It's really important that you understand what the word flint actually means, because in the chapter that we're going to read today, they're going to be using a flint a lot of the time to do things. We already know that Fred used a flint to cut his trousers to make them into shorts because they were wet, but they're going to use the flint to make something else today. So a flint is a noun, it's a thing. It is a hard grey rock like this one here. And in the book, it's quoted as, "We need a flint," said Fred. Okay, so maybe think, what might they need that flint for? Another way we could use this word flint is by saying the houses were built of brick and flint. because this obviously is a rock, so it can be made, it's the material to be used for making other things too, so you could make houses. Some synonyms for this word flint are rocky, so it's a bit like a rock, so it's quite rocky. Whereas an antonym, and I wouldn't say this is a direct antonym of this word flint, I'd probably say it was quite a near antonym, but not fully an antonym. Soft boiled. So if something's soft boiled, it's not hard, is it? Okay, but that's not a complete antonym, but there aren't many antonyms for the word flint, so that was the best one I could find. Now we do have 3 keywords today because I found when I was reading the book that we may have not come across this word before. This word, surreptitiously, is an adverb. It's used to describe how something is being done. Now it has 5 syllables, surreptitiously, and it means that it's an adverb to describe you doing something in a way that you do it to avoid being noticed. So for example, you can see this person here is surreptitiously trying to get the cookies from the cookie jar because he's trying not to be noticed and not to attract attention. In the book, it's quoted, "He held the watch in his fist, surreptitiously tracing the letters on the back with his thumb." So there's something to do with a watch in today's lesson that we're going to learn about when we're reading the book, where this person, we don't know who it is, they're surreptitiously, so trying not to be noticed, tracing some letters on the back. So there must be something engraved in this watch. We'll have to find out. Another way we could use this word by saying Mary surreptitiously slipped from the room. So she didn't want to be noticed, but she wanted to leave the room. So synonyms for this word could mean secret or covert. When you're on a mission, you don't want to be seen. An antonym could mean open or honest, where you don't mind being seen. You want to be open, you want to be honest. Okay. We are going to continue reading the rest of this next chapter. This chapter is all about fire, so let's think what it might be about. What I am going to do, I'm going to read the first 2 slides of pages and then I will leave it over to you to read the second 2 slides, or you can read them from your resources and then I will explain today's task, okay? You ready? The grubs, when mixed with the cocoa beans and pounded with a clean stick, turned into a paste which, if you squinted and were of an optimistic temperament, looked like flour and water. So we can see here that they're trying to eat the grubs. They've mixed them with the cocoa beans that they'd found to make them a bit more chocolatey-like, and they're trying to forget the fact that they are grubs and trying to think, imagining that they're just flour and water. "Now, we just make a fire and cook them," said Fred. "Just," said Con. "We need a flint," said Fred, so that's that rock. "We need kindling," so kindling is like wood to make it, said Lila. "And matches," said Con. "I'll do the kindling," said Fred. Most of the wood surrounding them had dried since the rain the night before. He held the hem of his cricket jumper in his teeth and made a hammock for the wood. The night in the jungle had not improved the taste of the wool. He came back to the clearing and tipped the wood into a pile, a few paces away from the den. "There were flints in there," said Lila. "We could rub away the moss and use them to make a spark." Flints don't go off, so they wanted to use these flints, that rock, to make a fire. What do you think they wanted to put in the fire? They wanted to make sure they could cook the grubs nicely with the cocoa beans. Okay. "Flints aren't enough by themselves," said Fred. "I've tried. You need a bit of steel." Lila ducked into the den to fetch the flint. Con was staring at Fred's watch. "What's that made of?" So you can see that she's trying to hint to Fred, "Oh, I can see your watch is made of steel." What's Fred going to say? Fred stared down at the watch, covering it protectively with his hand. "Glass. And steel," he said. "My father gave it to me when I went to boarding school." Do you think he wanted to give the watch away to be made? "But it's broken," said Con. "I know that," he said. "So," said Con, "if it's broken, it's not really a watch anymore, is it? But what it is a lump of steel." Fred jerked his hand back. His father never bought his birthday gifts. He left it to his secretary to take Fred to Harrods and pick out something sensible. So we can tell there then that Fred's dad really had not a big part in his life. Now, why do you think his father didn't have much time to be with Fred? Because he was working all the time. So Fred's father had bought him this gift. Okay. This was the only gift Fred could remember his father choosing himself, because his secretary had chosen everything else. He had had it engraved with Fred's initials, so it was really special to him. So do you think he might have wanted to give this away? No. Lila nodded. It might be the only way, she said. Her voice had sympathy in it, but grit too. Fine, said Fred. He had an unaccountable, absurd need to cry. Fine, we'll use it. So he felt a bit peer pressure to use it. Can I have first try? Asked Con. It's my watch. I know, but I've never lit a fire before, she said. Not even the ones in the fireplaces at home. Not even on bonfire night? Fred asked. Not allowed. There was longing and hunger in her eyes. She looked away from him, turning the flint over and over in her hand as if it was a jewel. But there was something written in her face. Fred thought, something in a code he couldn't begin to read. Here. Slowly he undid the strap. He held the watch in his fist, surreptitiously tracing the letters on the back with his thumb so he didn't want to be noticed. Con watched in silence. He put it in her palm. I get second go, so he let Con have the first go. Lila heaped shredded leaves and dried grass in a pile. You do it over that, she said, so the spark has something to catch. Con struck the back of the watch against the stone. Fred winced, so remember he kind of made that facial expression where he might have been about to cry. She overshot and dug the flint into her own skin. She said nothing and tried again, so Fred has let her have this first go and she's kind of messed it up by hurting herself, hasn't she? She bit down on her tongue, concentrating. Her eyebrows furrowed so deeply they nudged against her eyelashes, striking and striking until her fingers were raw, so they desperately tried to make this fire. Suddenly, flint and steel let off a tiny spark. Con was so stunned she fumbled the flint. Again, shrieked Max. Again! Again! The spark came again, a brief flare into the world that vanished as it came. Okay, so you can either pause the video now, read the next 2 pages, 62 and 63, or you can continue watching and then read them in your own time from the resource pack. Okay, and then if you do the same with the following 2 pages, 64 and 65, either read them now and pause the video or read them from your resource pack, okay? Okay, year 4. So in our part 2 of this video, we will be discussing all about inference and looking at those inferential questions, okay? So I will see you in part 2.